Hi, everybody. Pastor Greg back and to answer another of your questions about the Bible. This one comes from the Hildebrandt household. And the question is this: where did Jesus die? You know, it's not very nice to talk about dying. It can make us feel uncomfortable. Maybe you have had a pet that died or a plant that died. Perhaps you've had even someone very close to you, like a grandparent or a friend who's died. Dying is a part of our life, and it can feel scary because we really deeply miss the people who die. But we don't have to be afraid of it, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But today's question is, where did Jesus die? Well, Jesus was a person like you and me, and he died a long time ago, about 2,000 years ago. I want to talk for a moment about Jesus' life in what where he lived and what he did. First of all, here we see this picture of Israel. There's Bethlehem, where Jesus was born, and Nazareth, where he grew up. Up here is Galilee, where he taught and worked. And he also spent a lot of time in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is also where he died. Let's take a look at where some people think Jesus may have died. Here's our lovely planet floating in space, and we're going to zoom right in and see one place called the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. That's located in Israel and in the city of Jerusalem, and you can see it in this picture here. See those two round silver spots? Those are actually domes. The domes of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. They're a beautiful structure that's built over the spot where many Christians believe that Jesus died. But there's another space too, which is north of the city, and it's up here outside of the wall. It's called the Garden Tomb and Golgotha. People started thinking about that place later on. There's the Garden Tomb and also the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, separated by the old city wall. Now here's another picture of it. You might make more sense out of this. Here's the wall around the city, the old city that is, when Jesus was alive. And right in the northwest corner, or the Christian quarter, is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And then north, above the old wall through the Damascus Gate, is Golgotha, or the Garden Tomb. Let's take a look at what these places look like. First, we'll look at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Here's a picture of it from the outside. It's a beautiful building with two domes that we saw on the map. And underneath that is another mini church. That's the sepulchre. Sepulchre is a place where people are buried. And underneath these big domes and down under the ground is a place where they think Jesus was both crucified and then buried. Here's a cutaway that lets you see what that might look like, where he died and then where he was buried. Here's the other place north of the city, Golgotha and the Garden Tomb. Golgotha is a word that means skull. And you can see from this picture how some people might have thought this kind of looked like a skull. Here's another picture. It looks like some gaping eye sockets in the shadow of a rock where a nose might have been. Pretty interesting, huh? Well, which was it? Was it down at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre or up at the Garden Tomb up there? Constantine's mom, Helena, thought that it was here at the site of the Holy Sepulchre, and she's the first one who decided to have that beautiful church built. But it was in the mid-1800s when some archaeologists thought that maybe this space outside of the city walls that looked more like a place where crucifixion might happen and burials could take place. Well, people are disagreed a little bit about which of those things really was the place. It's okay for us to disagree about some things that happened a long time ago or can be hard to figure out. But here's something we do know for sure, that Jesus did live, and he spent time in Jerusalem, and he was also killed in Jerusalem. The religious leaders were upset with him because he taught God's love for everybody, and the Romans were upset with him because he thought that he might cause an uprising, and he was put to death, and he died there in Jerusalem. But that's not the end of the story. No, Scripture tells us also that when his disciples went to look for him a few days later, they couldn't find him. He had risen from the dead. And after that, many people reported seeing the risen Jesus. And they were so convinced that they were willing to live their whole life, even if it meant suffering themselves, for the sake of obeying Jesus' way of life. Well, it's our hope as Christians, as followers of Jesus, that just as he was raised from the dead, so too our loved ones and we ourselves one day will raise too. So death is not the final word. Our God is a God of life and a God of resurrection hope. Thank you for that great question. I hope this was helpful in thinking about it. Until next time, bye-bye.